we've just hit midday and we've got a lovely audience of 28 people and counting, which is fabulous. So kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. It's wonderful to see you all and to welcome you to this talk from Tepora and Rochelle. I must say I'm really looking forward to it because it must have been 2 years ago, maybe more, that as part of Project Kāinga, we had a hui in Rotorua, and Rochelle and Tepora and quite a number of other people. We were all staying in this one wonderful place, and early in the morning I came down and Tepora and Rochelle were at the table working away on something, and they called me over and said, "What do you think of this?" And there on the table was the very beginning of what you're going to be hearing about today, which is a conceptual framework to assist people in how to take a very holistic approach in undertaking research with Māori communities. Tepora and Rochelle are absolutely inspiring people, and I'm honoured to know them both. They both have been undertaking their PhDs with us at the Centre for Sustainability. Tepora has just worked her way through and had her final very minor amendments approved. So she is officially about to be Dr. Tepora, and Rochelle is just undertaking those final little amendments, and it won't be long before she has also completed this amazing journey. So congratulations to you both. Absolutely brilliant work. So anyway, without further ado, I'm really delighted to open the floor to Tepora and Rochelle. And I must say, if I was sitting in my own office, on the back here behind me would be the diagram, which I'm sure they're going to show you, which is the sort of concentrated representation of the Pūngāwerewere model of research, which I keep glancing at every day that I come into my office. So over to you two, and I'll field questions. If you want to put questions in the chat, we'll deal with those at the end of the presentation. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, ko whakatere tuku maunga, ko waima tuku awa, ko tuhirangi tuku marae, ko te mahurihuri tuku hapu, ko ngāpui tuku iwi, ko Tepora tuku ingoa.
Ko whiti matarau te maunga, ko awatiri te awa, ko hinirupi te marae, ko te whānau hinirupi te hapu, ko Ngāti Parau te iwi, ko Rochelle taku ingoa. Is that sharing screen? Sorry.
It is now. It is now. Te Pūngāwerewere Pukumahi. The title means Pūngāwerewere is a spider. The web is Te Whare Pūngāwerewere, the spider web. And Pukumahi means to be industrious. So we believe that as a researcher, an industrious researcher makes it really a crucial part of their research to know how to work within Te Ao Māori, how to work within Māori communities. And that's what our title means.
So I just want to talk about how our framework emerged. Tepora and I began our doctorate in 2021, and we're part of the Centre of Sustainability at Otago University. We also share the same supervisors, and we met through our supervisors. We also have a background in primary school. We're both primary school teachers, and we had similar research topics in terms of climate change and returning to our marae communities, which we call kāinga, to undertake our research.
Exactly, and one of the reasons for the emergence of this framework, when Rochelle and I were at the hui in Rotorua, exactly the one that Janet is talking about, we'd been discussing what we saw as a need for an all-encompassing research paradigm which embraced the underpinning values of Te Ao Māori, particularly for researchers like myself and Rochelle, who've been away from our home kāinga for many years, as well as for researchers who've never been on a marae. For us in particular, we'd never done Māori students studies at university, and we'd both done educational research. So for us, we knew everything about Sir Giovanni's basket and Bronfenbrenner and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But when it came to research in Te Ao Māori, there was much that was missing for us. By midnight, we had decided on this web for the structure of our ideas, and the image here is from a page inside my journal. And this was the design that Janet first saw when she came downstairs. It's very rough, a lot of scribbling on it, and unfinished very much at this stage. But then again, at 3 o'clock that morning, I woke up, Rochelle, I know what we can call it. And so that's where it came from. These values that you're going to learn about in our kōrero today are what help to guide us through our rangahau in our marae communities.
Just want to talk a little bit about my research. So my research is titled Whakapapa Whenua Wai, a case study of Te Remu Trust in the face of climate change. So Te Remu is an ahu whenua land trust, and it's located in Te Araroa on the east coast of the North Island. And so my research was focusing on the impacts, the challenges and opportunities of climate change.
My research was entitled Kāinga Kura and Kai, Sustainable Gardens as a Mechanism to Enhance Educational and Cultural Outcomes. It was based in my tūranga waiwai of Te Tai Taukarau, and this rangahau or research highlights the importance of utilising your kāinga, your community, and your school together in partnership in order to re-indigenise sustainable food production systems, reclaiming our customary knowledge. And when we step into our kāinga and our marae, the success of our research, Rochelle's research project she just shared, as well as mine, the success of this research in Te Ao Māori will depend on whether we approach it as the spider who can dance across the web from po to po, integrating everything, or the fly. We'll share about the fly a bit further on.
So this is Te Pūngāwerewere Pukumahi, and this is our framework that we designed or constructed. So here I will talk about the 9 po, and then we'll unpack each po and what it means in theory, and then what it looks like in practice. So there are 9 pos, which we sometimes call values, to our web. They're all equally important, and they help guide our research and broaden out and strengthen elements of research in Te Ao Māori. Whakapapa is the woven layers of harakeke in the background. The mauri, which is in the centre of the web, it joins the 8 po. And then we've got rangatiratanga, one of the po, manaakitanga, mātauranga, kotahitanga, kaitiakitanga, we've got whakawhanaungatanga and whanaungatanga.
Before we look at these po, it's important to recognise the whakapapa layers that underpin everything in Te Ao Māori. Now, whakapapa is not just our physical, personal genealogy, who we're descended from. We have the whakapapa of our atua, our gods, but every living thing has a whakapapa. The seeds that we plant in our garden, the plants that grow, every single thing has a whakapapa, which is made of multiple layers. And the harakeke, which is at the base of our diagram, I wove that when I was first teaching some children how to weave with harakeke. And we thought that was a suitable base to show how all of the layers of whakapapa can be symbolised with our woven harakeke base.
I'm going to talk about the mauri. The mauri is at the heart of the web, and it binds the 8 pō together. And the mauri must remain balanced throughout the whole research, and it needs to be strong and firmly attached. We also refer to a balanced mauri as mauri tau, which also means calm or in equilibrium. If any of the pō are ignored, this will impact the mauri, causing it to become unbalanced, having a roll-on effect on the other pō and potentially breaking the web, which could cause major implications for the research. An example of mauri becoming unbalanced is when the researcher does their own thing without consulting the participants in the research. An example of maintaining a balanced mauri is when the researcher is self-reflecting throughout the research with their supervisors. It might be with a kaumātua or PhD peers. And mauri is about the health and well-being of the researcher and the research participants. So it's a researcher looking after the participants and vice versa. And the participants are at the heart of the researcher's decisions, and it's all about balancing relationship.
Rangatiratanga, leadership. This is a good place to explain the fly. When you see a spider web, the different pō that we have reaching out on those web, we believe every one of these pō is crucial, and the spider can move from one to the other without any disturbance. You'll see a fly smack into a web. Not only does it get stuck, but its reverberations can be felt throughout the entire web. And this is what we believe can happen if you don't include this important pō of rangatiratanga. This pō represents having an awareness of the leaders and the kaumātua and koia, the elders within our rohe or kāinga, within the area that we are researching in. We believe it's crucial that you not only introduce yourself to the elders, but share with them what your plans are, what you're hoping to research, what your intentions are with it. And we find that this is a really crucial kōrero, and we don't believe you should attempt your research without it.
The next pō is manaakitanga. If we think about manaakitanga, a general definition is hospitality, kindness, support, generosity, and the consideration of needs and interests of others. The word manaakitanga can be broken down into 3 parts. So you've got manaaki, aki, and tanga. We look at mana, it often refers to power, status, and authority. If we look at aki, it can mean to encourage, hold, support, urge, or challenge. And tanga is turning the word into a derived noun. So mana and aki dance between each other, and they're interlocking. Mana places entities in high regard, while aki helps to endorse their position. So one's mana is upheld by hospitality and kindness, while growing the mana of others by encouraging them to do the same. So manaakitanga is showing that respect to our research participants. This could be done by listening and by learning and being humble, etc. Manaakitanga is also about that reciprocal relationship that we spoke about in relation to the mauri, and also relationships within the research context is about how we think, we behave, we interact, we engage with each other. It's about being tekad, doing the right thing.
As Rochelle just explained, mana can be seen with hospitality and kindness, which helps to grow the mana of others. It's important to always show respect to the speaker, whether you are in a hui situation, or whether you're in a wānanga, a teaching educational situation, or a kanohi ki te kanohi, a face-to-face interview. Doesn't matter. how many people there are, it's important to always show respect to the speaker. And it was during a hui where a member of the audience stood and they didn't agree with something the speaker had said. We were in a marae, and they immediately started to poke fun at the old kaumātua who was doing his kōrero, causing laughter and mirth. It did not upbuild his mana. And at that stage, one of my cousins turned to me, she's in her 80s, and she said, now that is what we call a mana muncher. It was a phrase I'd never heard before, but I've heard it many times since. As researchers, we have to remember that we've got a position of accountability to uphold not just the mana of the person that we are interacting with, but to uphold the tikanga of the marae, the hui, or the kōrero at all times. It's important to remember we don't undertake this research to enhance our own mana. Doesn't matter what letters we might end up with behind our name. That's not the crucial thing. It's important to uphold the mana of the participants and the kāinga. And this will strengthen the mauri of the kāinga, the heart of our web that Rochelle spoke about. It's also important to remember that each marae will have its own customs and values. And although it's all in the world of Te Ao Māori, doesn't mean everything's identical from one marae to another. So you need to have a kōrero. Familiarise yourself with what is the expectation in the kāinga that you're in, so that you don't accidentally step into a situation like the fly where you may unwittingly shake the foundations of the web.
Hey, mātauranga. Mātauranga is a contemporary word. It didn't exist. Historically, words to describe mātauranga were kōrero, tōku iho, pūrākau, or wānanga. So now we're using mātauranga, and it generally means Māori knowledge, body of knowledge originating from our Māori ancestors. And their wisdom is still applied today in, for example, maramataka. Mātauranga varies depending on iwi, hapu, whānau, and quite often it's localised knowledge. It's important to note that mātauranga is not just a body of knowledge, it's also lived knowledge, so it's practical as well. There's 3 stages of learning. The first stage is mātauranga, so in its simplistic terms, it is knowledge. Number 2 is mōhiotanga, which is can mean to understand or knowing. And the 3rd stage is maramatanga, which is enlightenment. So in the research context, it is using the knowledge and applying it to different situations, or using it to create new knowledge. So the researcher might tap into mātauranga with the kāinga, and if they do, they must handle it with care and be guided by the participants in the kaumātua.
Kotahitanga. This is shown when we have a unity and togetherness. Within the Pūngāwerewere Pukumahi framework, kotahitanga is demonstrated through unity and togetherness while working towards a common goal or collective action. And your kāinga or your research group is involved from the very beginning. And sharing a common goal with our kāinga and everyone involved, as we discussed earlier with rangatiratanga, making those introductions, explaining what you're doing, and the sharing of this goal is crucial, whether it's via a hui situation or kanohi kui te kanohi kōrero face to face. This includes conversing and consulting about the different aspects of the research through the hui, through the kōrero. For example, transcripts from my interviews and from Rochelle's also. They were shared back with our kāinga, with our community, as well as our analysed data and our results. And this kotahitanga will develop naturally as each of the other po are respected and applied.
So kaitiakitanga, we'll start with a general definition. Kaitiaki means guardianship, stewardship, trusteeship. In our framework, kaitiaki refers to the researcher as the facilitator. So we don't own the research, but we belong to it. And the researcher's job is to look after the knowledge in accordance with the participants or the community. The researcher's role is like a facilitator, actively listening, learning, understanding, being humble and respectful, and their role is to care for that knowledge. So what does kaitiaki look like in our framework? Maybe being transparent with the participants. It might be discussing the research process with them, consulting, engaging, co-design, co-constructing, or making informed decisions together.
Whanaungatanga. Whanaungatanga is about our relationships, our kinships, our descent, and a sense of family connection. It has its basis in trust and respect. It's about establishing trusted relationships within our research kāinga. For example, we wouldn't go onto a marae, participate in something, go home again and place inappropriate social media posts. We wouldn't do things like that because they know they can trust us. Our rangatira and our kaumātua know they can rely on and trust us. We have a research accountability. It's not what this research will do for me, but the accountability comes about in asking, what will this research enable me to contribute to my community? And if we do all of this, if we strengthen this relationship this way, it means we will have the blessing from the rangatira and the kāinga on our research.
Okay, so whakawhanaungatanga, so it's important to note that whanaungatanga and whakawhanaungatanga, they are different concepts but closely linked. So whakawhanaungatanga is the ongoing process of establishing and maintaining relationships. So how do we strengthen relationships? It could be by actively listening, networking, building trust like Tepora had just spoken about. We need to walk alongside the community and make sure that their voices are heard. It's important to point out that the ongoing relationship between the researcher and the participants continues after the project ends. So they might be called upon, the researcher, to support the community or the participants with other mahi. From our experience, the rich kōrero came from informal situations with participants, such as when we're doing dishes or chores. This also helped build strong relationships. And also, if researchers don't have a strong relationship or a relationship with the community, they can start by reaching out the marae or participating in events or getting to know the community, or they've got networks that would also help.
We brought you back to our framework again because our Pūngāwerewere Pukumahi, our industrious spider, as you see from the image, each and every one of those po can be integrated together. And coming back to what Rochelle just said, we know that whanaungatanga is our relationships, but whakawhanaungatanga is building those relationships. And I can tell you quite clearly, as I'm sure almost everyone else that's here today can as well, that the gems of my research were gathered in many cases in the marae kitchens over the tea towels, which is why we were presenting this at the My Indigenous Researchers Conference last year. And so we had several tea towels made with our Pūngāwerewere framework on it. And that's what Janet has got framed in her room. And I know that there's one in the Sea Safe hallway as well in the corridor. But because we did it as a tea towel, because if there's one message, one single message we want you to take away when it comes to research in Te Ao Māori, It's do not be scared to pick up the tea towel.
So we just want to stress that the Te Pūngāwerewere Pukumahi is not a one-size-fits-all approach. This framework is not an exact guide to kāinga research, but it consists of underpinning values that can help guide the research processes. So before we end this presentation, we would like to mihi to our supervisors who we've been fortunate to have shared the journey with. We are grateful for their guidance, their tautoko, their patience, sharing their wealth of knowledge. So massive mihi to Professor Merata Kāwhuru, Professor Paul Holder Tapsell, and Dr. Hirani Tāne.
And we would like to also mihi to the other people who got us to the end of our doctoral journey, but encouraged and supported us all the way, and are encouraging us with further research and writing as well. And just a small number of people that we would actually like to mention by name, apart from everybody at CSAFE, the Centre for Sustainability, Caroline, Janet, particularly as Janet was there in our very first designing of this framework. Fiona and Gwenda, I've always said no matter what the problem is, if it is a resource problem, a financial problem, or where do I go next problem, Fiona and Gwenda make things happen. They're wonderful. Rachel Sizemore, who has just achieved so much on behalf of us with the Mai conferences, the Māori writing workshops, and her guest room, and has just been absolutely amazing to work with. And Dr. Nick Baker as well. We've followed with Nick's writing workshops for a couple of years now, and all of these people that we are mihiing have become close whānau to us. And
also we've got Mino, who's our tautoko brother. I also want to mihi to him as well. He's part of our group.
Yes, I saw him here today, and also everyone who is a part of Pāta Plate and Project Kāinga.
Kia ora, Rochelle and Tepora, thank you. It's hard to clap when you're online, isn't it? But that was brilliant. And I just would add, do you want to say a little bit about the fact that you've now published on this? And so if anybody wants a bit more information and more detail, you have a published paper. Do you want to just mention where people might find that and the name of the paper? Or you can pop it in the chat even. Great. So now we've got time for some kōrero. So would anybody like to either share a reflection on having heard this this really helpful framework that these two have developed through their research and their collaboration with each other? I think it's a fairly unusual situation where, because PhDs are often a very lonely journey, it's just you and your research. And the special thing about this story we've been hearing today is that Rochelle and Tepora have worked together on this framework, inspired by the work that they've separately been doing with their communities, but also the way they've engaged with each other really strongly through their PhD journey. And I know, Mino, you have been a big part of that as well. But to go back, so if anybody's got questions of Rochelle and Tepora or reflections on what they've heard or of your own research with Māori communities, this is a great time to share that. So over to you. Stephen.
Kia ora. Thank you very much for the presentation. Absolutely awesome and on point. Yeah, I have to say that the analogy of the spider web and the fly, it was spot on. Absolutely, it's for many people, researchers coming into the Māori world, working with Māori communities. This is going to be a fantastic guide for them, and it's, you know, I've encountered multiple numbers of the things that you've mentioned within there, but the overall don't want to say protocols, but the attitudes that and kaupapa that you must go into working with Māori communities. That's you've framed it in an absolutely lovely and understandable way. I'd love to see this the paper. I'm working with a German criminologist up here in Auckland that is facing the very problems. They came to me, to good old Pākehā Tepene, to say, well, how do I get involved with Māori communities? What do I do? And I sat there for 2 hours and said, you know, to obviously engage with communities, but you're being able to have something to present in the depth that comes from within Māori research by Māori researchers is going to be phenomenal for people coming in that have no idea about how to do it, and be able to, they're not going to step on, if they're following the things that you've talked about, they're going to step on less toes. And I love the point of, and I'm of the same opinion, but that thing of you're working with communities, you are with them for life, and I'm absolutely happy to do that. I'm very honoured to do that with all the communities that I've worked with. So it's wonderful that you've put that thing in of that old dispelling the old anthropological model of going in and helping the people, or studying them rather than come on, we're here to work together on things, so yeah, in closing, fantastic job. So proud of you guys for getting through your PhDs. Such smart people. And it's been an honour working with you both. Sure.
Oh, ngā mihi for those beautiful words, Stephen.
Thank you.
I have popped a link into the chat.
Thank you.
So if you copy and paste that before you log off, you should have access to the paper.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Kia ora, Jana.
Yes, hi. Oh, this was such a beautiful, wonderful presentation. Thank you both for all your work on this. And I just want to comment that I think this is such a wonderful exemplar of how we can work not only with Māori communities for Pākehā, but with all cultures. I think it's really transferable, and I just love everything that you're doing with it, and especially when it comes to that, that introduction and your intentions. I mean, that's something I've done even with Native American communities that I've worked with. We always set aside, a day or two just to first have a korero and talk about, this is what we're interested, what do you want from this project? How can we work together? And just making sure, you're all on the same page. And I just think it's so great that you've actually created this framework that people can use, because I know, I certainly have colleagues who, have expressed nervousness or a little bit of, I don't know if fear is the right word, but apprehension, worry about doing something wrong and working in those spaces, and and therefore sort of stepping away from working in those spaces rather than embracing it and actually figuring out how we can work as allies here and create a beautiful project together. So I just, I think this is so needed and just perfect timing on this. And I'm really excited to apply it to all the work I do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Nick.
That was amazing. A fantastic presentation. And I think I would like to maybe lay down a challenge. And challenge, I think, reflects very well with what has already been spoken by these amazing people who are congratulating you and sharing their wisdom. I think you have a great opportunity here to share your framework further as a framework of ethics in working with Indigenous communities. Now, I say this because not only because of your presentation, but because I had a discussion with a colleague last week who I was interviewing, and we were talking about ethics, and everything you just described aligns with powerful ethics to work with others. And we were talking about how we would love to see something for Indigenous peoples that could not only work with the beautiful Maori communities, but could go beyond, perhaps towards those communities in America, anywhere, a model that can be applied in any context. This is a possible model, which we could maybe even use here at Otago for ethics when it comes to working with beautiful Indigenous communities and working together. I challenge you to consider that possibility. I think you have an opportunity here to provide that theoretical tool, that tool of understanding, of collaboration from that lens. Give it a go. I reckon it could be a powerful way for us all to learn together.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
Thank you for offering to work with us, Nick.
We are always here at GRS for your assistance.
I know. Yes, I'll be down there very shortly.
Look, Nick, that's an amazing thought and really, really exciting. And it would be great if you could give a little bit of a steer to Rochelle and Tepora around how kind of what the next steps would be to have that conversation, because I assume, there are ethics committees and academics who think a lot about ethics, and maybe some connection can be made. And it sounds like you might be a great facilitator of that kind of connection.
Yep.
Hannah.
Kia ora, I'm Hannah. I'm just finishing up my undergraduate in religious studies and ecology. Thank you so much for the talks. It was really special to hear that, and thank you so much for sharing your work with us. As someone that's just about to head out into the professional world, it's really special to get some personal insights and guidance. And I really think it's a beautiful way that you've laid out the framework. Funnily enough, I'm actually going to a conference next week, and I'm going to be presenting some work that I did researching spider behavior. And it's always like really special to learn about like different whakatokis and cultural aspects which bring in these different aspects of our natural environment. But I wanted to ask, I've been aware of for a while that it's really important to make these genuine relationships and connections. But I actually grew up in the UK, and I'm not really sure, like as someone who's young and starting out, really where I'm going to end up. So I think a dilemma that I face is, how can I learn and make these connections in a genuine way while also having that uncertainty? And I suspect other young people might have that same kind of question. I wonder if you have any guidance on that.
Do you want to go first, Rochelle?
No, you can.
Okay. I would say that one of the first things you want to do is find out where the local marae is in the community that you're going to. If you can't find it, Māori Maps, as Tipene will verify, Māori Maps is an excellent place. They will give you the location of the marae, the name of the marae, and usually some sort of a website link to go to. And that was designed in conjunction with one of our supervisors. You correct me on this, Tipene. Dr. Hirini Tane, and he and Paura visited a lot of the marae, didn't they? And put them on Māori maps.
All of them, yeah.
All of them. And if you can contact someone from the marae, ask them, just say to them you're new to the area and you would like to make contact with, you know, the local kāinga, the local community, and would they be free to have a cup of tea? Always start out with a cup of tea.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everything's a cup of tea, and take a pack of biscuits in your bag. And don't be scared to pick up the tea towel when you've done it. Have a cup of tea with them. Get to know them. And at some stage, you can lead into, I'm researching in the area of such and such. And I think it's really important to get to know my local kāinga or community. And that's what I'm trying to do. One conversation will lead to another. That relationship building will start. And I know I don't want to be a mana muncher, and I'm not going to be, so Rochelle, do jump in if I get any of this wrong. We were at a hui and listening to a group of people talking, and one was saying, well, our medical service, we looked at all the data out of this Māori community, and we could see straight away what they were doing wrong, and we knew how we could fix it. So we arranged to have a hui with them, and we walked in there and we stood up and we told them who we were and what we had come to make happen. And she said they just weren't interested. They just didn't want to talk to us. So we just sat back. I said, did it occur to any of you to listen to them first? She said, well, we found that out the hard way after a cup of tea. We sat back and we said to them, why don't you tell us any problems that you think you might be having? And they came out with the same medical problems we'd come out with, but then they also came out with what they perceived to be solutions for this. And they were all things that we had as well. We just hadn't actually given them the opportunity to be heard. And so that's where our web is I think is a beautiful example. It is a classic example of build that relationship first. And Hannah, I hope that works. You know, look on Māori map for whatever community you're going into. Find the local marae. Make contact with someone in the marae. If you're up north, for me, I went to the Ngāpuhi Runanga, which was really great, and made lots of contacts with the schools and the community. And just attend a marae. You will be more than welcome. Do you want to add anything, Rochelle?
Yeah, I just agree with what you're saying, Tepora. I think the start point would be the marae and contacting them. And I guess in terms of our research, we found it easier for us to get in contact with our community, even though we did not live in our marae communities, or but we had networks, we had people that were able to introduce us to other people, and then that's how it was like a roll-on effect for us. We were just lucky we knew people who would introduce us to other people in the community. So that was kind of our way of being able to connect with our community. But in saying that, just because you have whakapapa to that community doesn't mean that people are going to accept you or share knowledge with you. You really have to build a relationship, and you also have to show your accountability and your ability and what you're contributing to the community. So I think that was really important part of our research that we found.
Kia ora. Richard, do you want to come next, and then Mino after that?
Yes, thank you so much for the talk. Thank you, Hannah, for the last question. Thank you for responding to it. Speakers, it's good to hear. I wanted to sort of ask the same question a different way. I'm coming from the US. I've recently moved here. I'm on a 3-year PhD at the moment. Who knows how long I'll end up staying here. and who knows how long I'll end up working with this community. It may be the rest of my life. It may not, right? It may be 3 years. It's difficult to go and have a cup of tea with a local marae and build connections when I'm aware in the back of my head that, you know, global capitalism or my passport may demand that I move back somewhere else. And I can have that cup of tea and say, hey, I don't know what's going on. I'm here right now. I'm here to do the dishes right now. I can pick up the tea towel right now. That's all I have. What I'm worried about is, given the lack of uncertainty, or given the lack of certainty about the scope of my time, is it coming in with a colonialist ethic to even say, I'm here, spend time with me to build connections, knowing that I will have to sever them because I'm under a different conceptual framework? Isn't that in some sense disingenuous, even if I come in with that right on my forehead? Like, how do you, another way of asking this question is, the system in which I was raised is orthogonal, it's inimical to indigenous systems of knowledge. And I know that because where I was raised in particular, and my ancestors destroyed indigenous systems of knowledge through their work. I can try to undo that work, but I'm still part of that system in some very real sense. So how do I approach a marae with respect, given that background?
That is the system from which you're approaching it. But from another perspective, if you're approaching the marae because you want to cultivate a relationship, don't go in with the intention, or what's this going to do for me? Remember what we said? What can I do for my community? Where can I help? You need to build a relationship before you can even consider the impacts that it may have or anything like that. We've got great examples of, is it Isaac Tippany who came and stayed with Paul Voigt on Project Kainga? It was Isaac, and he was only over here for a couple of years, I think, and ended up going. But he built the most fantastic relationships with the Maori communities on the maraes that he came into. And that boy was setting tables up, moving chairs around and everything. And the conversations evolve from that. Your first priority is not, oh, what's going to happen if I leave? Your first priority is, oh, let's build a relationship, and you will be welcomed. If you go in with an open heart and an open mind, that mauri that's at the center of the web, then that will actually work out well. And he still has great relationships with all of us, even though, where did he go? Where did he go back home to? Tiffany? Janet? Was it Jamaica?
Tiffany, you're muted.
Sorry, yes, he went to Jamaica, yeah. If I may add something to the question, or in response, is that, yeah, sure, we all have that baggage of colonialism, that's sure, but there is not much that that we can do to undo that, apart from interactions and our kaupapa. As the team was saying, as Tepora was saying, the important thing is that go in and do something with and for the people that you're wanting to be part of. That's it. I mean, it's not, you've got to be part of that, and like you say, develop a relationship. And the best thing I found you can do is, there is picking up the tea towel, but I mean, there's things like, go and dig the garden, or help build something, or spend time with with people if you can, you know, and believe in my case, having worked with a number of Māori communities over time, is that you think, oh, in 3 years I'll be going away. Sure, but that's not, you know, there's, you know, you still have those bonds with people. You know, if somebody from Katikati or you know, if Waitangi says, oh, Tiffany, can you do this? And you go, yep, sure, why not? You know, it's that's, you know, there is that bond that develops, you know, because you're dealing with people and people's lives, you know, and I do understand your trepidation. Is it Richard? Yeah, Richard, yeah. But, you know, people know whether, you know, people know if you've got an agenda. Just go in and be a genuine person about, you know, what you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And I might just add too, from many years of experience, of that as a PhD student, you'll have an idea in your head about what you want to do.
Yeah.
But and when you go and engage with the community, just kind of clearly you've got an idea, but just suspend your assumptions about how you're going to pursue that idea until you've engaged with the community from their side, how they see the issue that you're engaging with, because it might, your entire research program may shift as a result of that, and you may end up, and will likely end up, with something much richer, much more original, much more powerful, and something that will give back to that community as a result of just suspending your assumptions about your research until you've had those conversations. Yeah. I realise we're running out of time, and Mino is up next.
Thank you, Janet. Well, I'm missing my my sisters already. I just got back from Samoa last week and haven't been able to be as frequently as we have been on Zoom in the past. But I think the connection we had, the three of us Zooming from every morning, was very special. And we had people come in and come out, but the three of us stuck together. So well done, Tepora and Rochelle, for your completion and near completion. I'd like to add to the discussion that being present is important. If you go to a marae, if you go to a village in the Pacific, it's about being present. Maybe throw your watch away and engage from a position of humility and understand that from an Indigenous perspective, knowledge is there. We don't own it. Whereas Euro-Western perception is that knowledge is to be owned. It's to be a first author for. It's to be discovered. But from an Indigenous perspective, it's there. And we are honoured when people share it with us. And to be entrusted with that knowledge is about connectedness and trust and being understood that we are not there to exploit, which has been the Pacific has had many years of that experience of researchers coming in. And think about looking at your approach with an Indigenous paradigm. Think beyond just a Euro-Western framework, and you'll find, well, I found that, I know if I went into my communities and had a questionnaire and went through the questionnaire and I think, oh, that was great, I ticked off those points, that would not be a success. So my methodology in Samoa has been a talanoa. It's a discussion. I've got my themes, but one discussion went for 5 hours. But you glean, like Janet was saying, you can glean so much in that korero because we're talking about many things. And when you've got more connection with the marae, with the community, there's more to talk about. And it's not talking about yourself necessarily. So that's just some thoughts that have come to mind, and hopefully they're helpful to you, Richard. Yeah, but well done, Tepora and Rochelle. I really like the spirit of your presentation and how you've captured the essence of what it is to do Indigenous research well. Thank you for sharing those values.
Nā mihi our tautoko brother. Mino calls us his sisters. We call each other our tautoko sisters and brothers. We've worked together on Zooms in a support group. That's what tautoko ropu means. Setting up our own Zooms for over 2 years now, maybe close on 2.5 years. We've worked together. We've gone to conferences together. We've gone to hui together, and a lot more. And that's another paper in itself. So that's all I'll say, but we miss you too, our brother, and it's good to see you back in New Zealand.
Now, kia ora koutou. My apologies. My everything's gone black. I'm in this spare lecture theatre, and it's one of those ones obviously that has automated lighting timing, and all the lights have gone off. And despite jumping around, I can't make them come on again. So I'm sitting here in the dark. And my camera's gone off as a result. But anyway, sorry, I'm just a little bit discombobulated by this. We've got just a couple of minutes left before our hour is up. Are there any final thoughts or comments or things that people would like to share, or anything you, Tepora and Rochelle, would like to say just to close up?
Go for it, Rochelle.
Oh, hang on, Hannah's here.
Sorry, if there's time, I did have one other question. I hear and I understand it's really important to express respect and like paying proper attention to people when they're speaking, and when you're engaging with them. I was just thinking about neurodiverse people and people with disability, but specifically neurodiverse people sometimes, you know, even with best intentions, outwardly express can come off quite differently than they intend to. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on like those kinds of intersections. So it's quite vague.
Not too vague. I come back again to the comment Nick made about the ethics of it all. One of my mokopunas, very, very neurodiverse, and Rochelle and I, between us, I've got over 20 years experience in a classroom, you name it, I've seen it, and Rochelle has as well. And the simple basic, having the mauri at the heart of everything, and looking at how you approach everything, using that kindness, that understanding, it'll all still work. It'll all still work. Sometimes you need to perhaps put your aim and your goal aside for a moment so that the well-being and the comfort of that neurodiverse person comes first. The rest will follow. It needs patience. It needs time. Rochelle?
Yeah, I agree. You know, coming from a teaching background where we've got different students and different understandings, and it is important to be patient, different perspectives. So I agree with what Tepora has just said, definitely.
Tipini. Yeah.
Just in something that I was thinking about before, you know, there are many types of dish towels that one can offer, and one of the things that you might think about for emerging researchers or PhD students is you've got there because you're particularly good at a number of things, that those kind of skill sets you know, are going to be of use to communities. I have a background in quantitative research as well as qualitative research, and one of the things that you can do is use, things like it could be something as simple as offering to do a dive into, it could be policy around a particular thing that is related to that particular hapu, that marae or community, investigating things like government statistics. It's something that I do that seems to be useful to a lot of communities. So, everybody has their own kind of skill sets that might be useful for the community. It might not be specifically related to the project that you're doing, but, it could be they're having trouble with accounts, or, you can help with preparation of documents and that sort of thing. These are very practical things, but, they are things that are of use to communities, I've found in the past anyway.
Yeah, kia ora. Thanks, Tipini. Right. Well, our time is up, and Tepora and Rochelle, karawi, just kia kaha, such amazing work, and so well expressed and beautifully laid out before us. And one of the things I really love about the framework is that it's not only a set of really important principles and values, but it's also a metaphor that we can easily take with us in our minds anywhere. And just how all these things are interconnected, and the role of the spider dancing around, and the fly coming in, bumbling in to upset things. That at a metaphor level, it just works so well as well. And that's often, as humans, we work with metaphors in our minds all the time. We find them much easier to cope with than lots of detailed ideas. So thank you also for the metaphor. It is absolutely brilliant. So without further ado, even though you can't see me, I'm clapping and congratulating you both. And thank you so much for taking the time for working on such a detailed and fabulous presentation. And I'm so pleased this is going to be available to others in the future as well. Ka kite anō, and lovely to see everybody online.
Ngā mihi, ka kite everyone.
Ka kite.